Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbarth, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Hi, everyone. We are back, and we have some real royalty in our midst today, but I'll let Kay talk about that by herself a bit later on. And we also have quite a few news updates. Nothing major this week, but quite a few smaller things that we'll talk about. As always, my name is Paul Breitbarth.
My name is Ralph O'Brien.
And I'm still Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So I have a fun question. Of course, the fun question could be which one of you has recently won a pageant, but we won't go there. If you were an Olympic athlete, what would be your sport? And I'm going to caveat this with it doesn't have to be anything that you are athletically gifted at this moment. If you could pick a sport in the Olympics to be a competitor for, what would it be?
I'm torn between two. Historically, judo, that's what I've done. Yeah, but not good enough for Olympic level, certainly. But from a data protection perspective, fencing, because my face would be covered.
I've always thought about maybe I should like to go and do fencing at some point because it feels so elegant.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, our old co-host Maria is someone to talk to. I understand she does competitive sword play over in Deutschland. And I've actually signed up with an organization called the Silver Sabres in the UK that actually do competitive lightsaber displays.
That's an interesting one, right? I like that. For me, it would probably be swimming. I was always very naturally good at swimming, been swimming since I was 3. You had to swim the length of the pool before they'd let you from the shallow end to the deep end, and I could do that at 4. So mine would be swimming. Our family didn't pay for sports, especially not for worthless girls or anything. So I never actually got training, but if I was to do one, it would have to be swimming.
Anything in particular?
In swimming? Just regular. All of them. Doesn't matter. I can do the breaststroke. Yeah, I can do the backstroke, the breaststroke, the butterfly. Although I think I do the butterfly wrong. I think my body is, what do you call it? The coasting part you're supposed to do with your arms in front of you. I think I do them with my arms behind. And then so I think I'm backwards, but whatever.
They don't do Olympic doggy paddle, do they? They do.
No, that's not one. Now, I would not put myself forward for the synchronized swimming or the water polo or anything of that. I always thought water polo would be amazing to learn, but just swimming, not diving, not high diving, none of that stuff, just swimming.
Just 50-meter lengths and...
Yep.
Yeah. Diving would be fun. Though I'd jump in and the water would jump out.
I was thinking diving would be fun, except for vertigo. I'd take a look off the diving board and be like, yeah, I'd fall, whatever.
At least you fall in the water, so you get some points.
Yeah, I'm going to be like Rodney Dangerfield with his little triple board jump thing that looked ridiculous. All right.
So for me, I think it would be either crew, so rowing, and then ideally the men's 8, because that's the fastest and nicest number, although I also would enjoy the skiff just on my own and do it. The other option would be field hockey. Which, I mean, I used to do crew in university, not very good. And I've played field hockey in the past as well. But I think both are pretty nice Olympic numbers, where also the Netherlands traditionally is really good.
Field hockey is on horses or no?
No, that's polo.
That's polo.
No.
Okay.
Field hockey is just on your feet, running across the field. Traditionally, it's grass. Now it's something plastic, artificial.
Is Maastricht a big rowing town? Funny enough, I actually come from a big rowing town where there's always rowers going down the river where I live.
It's not a really big rowing town. There are people rowing, obviously, and the university has a rowing association as well. But they're now, when I studied, they were still rowing on the main river through the city center, but they've now moved to the outskirts to other water, which is more quiet and less dangerous. So you don't see them as frequently anymore.
Okay. Well, that's a shame. I think before we go into the week's news, we've actually got a couple of announcements, haven't we? I don't believe when we were recording last week, Mr. Breitbarth and I, in Kay's absence, I don't believe we announced Picasso, did we?
Ooh, I was waiting on that one. Y'all are awesome. So yes, we are absolutely thrilled to be shortlisted for, is it content creator?
It's something like that, yes.
Yeah, content creator shortlisted with, I don't know, like 7 or 8 other people or whatever, which is good. So I don't know how the awards are decided or if there's voting or anything like that, but the ceremony is November 11th. And so I am trying my best to get over to the UK for them. We've been looking at me going overseas at least once this year in the fall for something. And so this happened to be perfect timing. So hopefully we'll go over there and hopefully, fingers crossed, it's not for no reason. Hopefully we are awarded the award. But if we're not, it's simply an honor to be shortlisted for it. That is really cool.
Absolutely.
And thank you to our sponsor for nominating us.
Indeed. And I think the other announcement is we're in conversations with Privacy Space about another live recording a couple of days afterwards.
I think that's awesome, but I thought the second announcement was going to be this big shiny thing that I have, right?
Oh, I was getting there, Kay. I was getting there. For those people that aren't subject to our wonderful video recording, Her Majesty Kay, the Royal among us, is currently holding her crown.
An actual crown.
It is massive. It is gold and it is sparkly and it's 7 or 8 inches tall. It's massive, but for those of you that have been following us for the whole time, I compete in pageants. I started right before I was 50, so I didn't grow up a pageant girl or anything. And this time when I went, I had my broken back. I had a back brace. I was on a walker. I did use a walking stick on stage. So the director's husband uses a walking stick, and he had an extra one because they come in a pair. And so she loaned it to me, and I blinged it up from Kingdom Come and walked on stage with a walking stick and took lots of medication during the week, and I won. I'm pretty sure I got the sympathy vote in there somewhere, but to be at a pageant with a broken, God help me. But I won, and I know there's a lot of people in the tech field that mentioned the people that trolled when I was the cover for the top cyber news magazine. I got trolled by 2 gentlemen who talked about, why are you so glam on the cover? I'm going to quit following you, talking about the magazine and me. This is a serious topic. You shouldn't be so glam. What does being glam have to do with being competent or intelligent in your field? And what was funny is they actually made statements in their entire trolling thing talking about, you can wear what you want and you can take whatever pictures you want. This is what I wanted. Why are you criticizing because I go ultra feminine and glam? So it was interesting to be trolled by guys saying you can't be glam and be a competent privacy, cybersecurity lawyer, whatever at the same time. So otherwise, I think most people support what people do for fun. It doesn't matter what it is. If you do cosplay, if you do crossword puzzles, if you do photography, whatever you do for fun is your choice, and it's not up to anyone else to criticize that. So this is what I did for fun, my first pageant in 2 years, and now probably my last one.
Funnily enough, I'm sorry to hear about the trolling there, but I was looking at some posts earlier from Emerald and Ron, who both of which we will know are style icons in the data protection industry. But Emerald has been talking that she's going to post some content about her love of fashion. And great, we've all got interests outside of data protection. And just because some are more feminine or more masculine than others doesn't necessarily make us any more or less competent a professional.
Or if you're a masculine female or a feminine male, it doesn't matter.
But why do you say it's your last? Because you're not allowed to compete anymore once you've won?
Oh, no. I was saying because I started it only intending to do it for 3 years. But if you recall, I started right before COVID. In those lost years, I did compete a little, but it wasn't anything big or serious. So This was now that I've won, and I've won others. Now that I've won this and I have a big crown, I'll be doing pageant stuff for the year as a title holder, which I have to figure out what to go do and all that good stuff. I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I might get involved on the director side of pageantry stuff now, or maybe I'll stay involved doing something for the winners. But we'll see. We'll see what this next year holds. I know Tim, my husband Tim, would definitely want me to be done. I think he wanted me to be done before this one started, but...
Going out like Michael Jordan, right? Unbowed, unbroken, at the top of your game.
Exactly. It's a good time to exit. Yeah, this is a good time to exit.
Ralph, don't you think that a crown would be a good addition to a gala dress for a dinner?
Oh, yes. You should wear it to Picasso, of course, yeah.
I absolutely think I should, and I could probably reuse my gown if we're going formal, and gowns and tuxes. I definitely have a couple of gowns I could put on. One of the things they do at the pageant is ball gowns and bowling, so everybody gets dressed up in ball gowns, and we invade the bowling alley and take over 4 lanes, and we bowl.
Bowl and ball gowns, wow.
Bowling. I didn't this time. I don't usually bowl anyway. The last time I did bowl and threw a strike, I said, I'll throw one ball and I'm done so y'all can get a picture. I threw it. It was a strike. I was done. This time I didn't even throw a ball. I didn't even pick one up because I was more conscious of my back, which hopefully I'll get the procedure done just in the next couple of weeks and I can quit bitching and complaining over that because it's only been 2 months.
We shall have to wear a crown ourselves, Paul. Perhaps a tiara, Paul. We could be her attendants.
I like that. You don't know how much I like that.
Maybe only if we win, Ralph.
So there we go. I need to pay attention to there's a gala and I need to wear a formal dress. Got it. Okay. But we are looking at the dates and the times because Privacy Space will be about the same time. And a week later, there is IAPP Brussels. So just so people in Europe know, we're doing our best to look at the dates and the time and try to arrange us to be there to hit as many events as we can during the time we're there.
Absolutely.
Okay. In other news now, Paul, what do we have?
In other news, the most remarkable thing I came across this week is an emergency order from the Italian Data Protection Authority. This goes back to mid-July because they ordered the blocking of dissemination of the images of an autopsy of Chiara Poggi. And Chiara Poggi is somebody who was murdered in 2007 already. But apparently somebody made pictures or video recordings of the autopsy carried out at the time or at a renewed autopsy that was conducted earlier this year because there seems to be new evidence that has come to light. So the process has reopened. But somebody was just offering this online also against a fee, so trying to make money of the images of the autopsy. And in the same order, the Garante also warned media outlets and websites that any dissemination of the images would be unlawful, as it also violates the rules of ethics for journalists, as well as privacy legislation. Quite the emergency order. I think good work from the Garante. Not the typical thing that you would come across from a data protection authority.
But very much one that is human-centric and focused.
Absolutely. So another one that happened this week, a press release from the German Federal Data Protection Authority of July 22nd, so the day before we record, is that there is a first judgment in the fan pages case. As you may recall, the German Data Protection Authority at the federal level had issued an order against the Ministry of Information and Communications that they would not be allowed to keep a Facebook fan page for the German government. I'm not sure why you would be a fan of the government on Facebook, but they would have that page available for people to comment on and follow the news. Already since the discussion on Fashion ID and later also the case Wirtschaftsakademie before the Court of Justice of the European Union, it is clear that having a Facebook fan page and using Facebook plugins on a website would lead to joint controllership under the GDPR, which Facebook is still denying that is even possible, but that is the stance of the court. So because of all of that, the German DPA said no, the ministry, any government entity should not have Facebook fan pages. This was appealed to the Administrative Court of Cologne. Meta also joined the court case, but was dismissed on 3 of the 4 points. but the court did overturn the decision of the German DPA. I do not have the full detail yet. I haven't been able to find the actual case, so that probably has not been released. But the German Data Protection Authority has announced that they are examining the case and the reasons for the judgments very carefully, and will then decide whether to refer the case to the next higher instance, which is the Higher Administrative Court of Munster, for a decision. So that is to be continued. And then in other news, we have a fine in Poland, 17 million zloty, which is about 4.6 million US dollars, for GDPR failures in employee data breaches at the Golden Arches at McDonald's. They failed to verify the security measures of a certain data processor, did not include key GDPR clauses in the contract, delayed notifying the supervisory authority and employees for a data breach, and the processor itself also did not have sufficient technical and organizational measures to prevent unauthorized access to personal data. So the Polish DPA was very clear. McDonald's need to update their contracts, enhance security, conduct DPIAs, establish proper breach procedures, and monitor processor compliance. So basically, they just made a complete mess of this relationship with the processor. And it seems that also for other processors, the situation was not up to standards. So the Polish DPA gave quite a few compliance orders, and on top of that, multiple fines combining to those 4.6 million US dollars. And also the processor received a separate fine of around $50,000, mainly for non-compliance with data security and not having proper data processing agreements in place.
Yeah, and I think there's lessons for quite a lot of people in that. But people often forget that McDonald's, even though they're a major brand, they're also a franchise operated in different ways in different countries. And so you will see some level of variation, albeit with some corporate standards and branding. I happen to have done a piece of work for a company in Malta that actually runs some McDonald's franchises in various countries around the Mediterranean. There is some variance. Whenever you see McDonald's, you tend to think of a big global brand, and it is, but at the same time, it's a big global franchise. And so not every McDonald's will be dealing with their suppliers in a similar way. But of course, reputationally, people won't know that. It'll just pop onto the brand. And it makes me wonder what conversations would then happen between McDonald's corporate, let's say, McDonald's USA, and the franchisee in the local country.
They can't be pleased.
They can't be pleased, exactly, yeah. Yeah, they can't be pleased. And not only is there a financial impact there, but then there's a wider reputational impact on the brand as a whole, let alone what they're doing to update their individual contracts with processors locally, right?
Exactly. So, Ralph, what's new on your end?
Again, a bit of a lower news week this week. I actually speak to you from one of my customers today. I've been delivering soft skills. It's actually been interesting. One of my customers came in and asked me to not really deliver data protection training but I'm delivering training to their consultants in more soft skills, things like opening and closing meetings, managing conflict, what your audit report should look like, document control, evidence base. So actually, it's been really interesting for me this week to put my data protection knowledge to one side and think about my business knowledge. I've also been talking about relationship sales. How do you sell people by people? And the fact that we're not, as consultants, and we're sometimes a commodity to organizations, we're not buying toilet rolls here. We're not going into a shop and buying things that are 10 a penny. We're actually buying things that are luxury brand items. So how do you form a relationship and do a relationship sale? So it's been a lovely week to really step back and think about the softer skills. What skills have I learned throughout my career that are not technical subject matter expertise, that are actually to do with selling and sales and the consultancy process, to the delivery process, and actually setting up and advising customers on how to set up theirs. So that's been what my week's been like. But wider in the UK, I think probably the biggest thing, of course, is we're still waiting on the Data Use and Access Act commencement schedules between 2 and 12 months. We know the various elements of the law are going to go into operation, but we're waiting on DCIT to tell us what they are. But what DCIT have released this week is a memorandum of understanding between them and OpenAI. OpenAI to expand their UCLOS and to turbocharge the UK's AI infrastructure and transform public services.
Okie dokie.
So a strategic partnership between OpenAI and the UK government to stick OpenAI in everything we're going to do in the public sector, right? There's an infrastructure priorities laid out in an AI opportunities action plan and £2 billion made available in the spending review, which I'm sure OpenAI will appreciate. And there's also a lot of talk of sovereign AI backing national AI champions, though OpenAI isn't a UK company. They're an American company, last time we checked.
But I'm sure there is an OpenAI UK PLC coming soon, and then they are a UK company.
Probably in Ireland.
Ireland is not part of the UK. Let's just be clear.
I know. I'm just saying that if they're going to have one overseas, it's probably going to be in Ireland, right?
Well, that's where normally the American tech companies put them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sure, that the UK wants to attract AI talent here. And they mention a couple of examples. OpenAI's large language model ChatGPT underpins Humphrey, Whitehall's AI assistant that speeds up civil service by taking away admin burdens. And ChatGPT 4.0 is used in Consult, a tool that speeds up the policy-making process by sorting public responses to consultations. A task that takes officials weeks in minutes, apparently. So, yeah, automation as a shortcut with OpenAI here to stay in UK government, essentially. There you go.
Sorry, if you talk about AI and accessibility for the general public, one of my favorite tech companies, Proton out of Switzerland, today actually released Lumo. And Lumo is also an app, an AI app like ChatGPT or any of the others. But it makes use only of open source large language models, and it's run on European servers. And all the data is kept confidentially on your device, so nothing is stored on their servers. It is generated on European servers, but nothing is actually stored.
Okay, that's interesting. The only other thing I say which is quite interesting that's happened from the ICO this week is, Paul, you'll remember on the podcast last week, I was talking about the Afghan relocations MOD data breach and the fact that the ICO had carried out an investigation and were taking no further action despite the risk to 18,000 people's lives, potentially.
Yes.
And the fact it was under a super injunction that prevented it from being talking about. The criticism got so much on the ICO that a couple of days later, the ICO issued a blog, this time not from their enforcement side, Emma Keeney, but from actually John Edwards, the Information Commissioner himself, going into a number of paragraphs. It was a real long statement, actually, defending their approach, going about, we've seen a lot of criticism, we've seen a lot of people saying we're not taking any action when we should be. So the ICO themselves actually came into a statement. It says, it's unacceptable, should never happen again, the stakes are simply too high, but then goes on to explain all the reasons why they're not going to take any action. A really confusing statement from the ICO. It says the ICO makes thousands of decisions every year about how to allocate our resources to take the greatest impact across the economy. Some involve complicated trade-offs. Some observers criticize ICO decisions. Some would make decisions differently. And so the ICO is defending their position here at the same time as trying to acknowledge the risk of harm, which is even more confusing, to be honest, even more confusing. They fully acknowledge the harm, they fully acknowledge the danger, and then go on to say why they're not going to take any enforcement action at all.
Definitely political speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be my analysis. What first appeared to be, well, I was actually really looking forward to that, to the commissioner coming out with a supplementary statement to actually understand the reason. And yet it seems to be political wording as opposed to actually a detailed explanation of the reasons for and the reasons against and why they took the decision they did. A little bit disappointing, perhaps again, but at least the ICO has acknowledged that people are critical of their view and taking steps to be more transparent.
Must be pretty strong criticism if he's going to stand up against it. Must be pretty strong.
It was. It was.
So,
Yeah,
well,
it
another
was.
thing that the ICO came out with that I was pleased to see, because I think we talked about it once before on the podcast, is all the spam, spoof, scam calls that pretend to be someone with an insurance claim in particular and trying to get money or something out of people. And like I said, I think we spoke about it before on the podcast, and scam and spoof calls in the UK seem to be wildly out of control. Apparently, the ICO was cracking down on this and has started taking some action on it. But one of the things that they said in their press release about what they were doing on it is that they're also going to be looking into insurance companies to see where the problem might lie, to see if there is an insider that is actually contributing to these spam, spoof, scam calls. I think they call them cold calls. But they spoof being someone else. They spoof being the sheriff's office, or they spoof being a repair place, or they spoof being your insurance company. And they have details about your claim that supposedly only certain people would have, but accident reports are public knowledge. And that's where we presume the majority of them are coming from. The ICO seems to be indicating maybe it's a bigger issue than that. So something that, as y'all know, with my company that I'm paying close attention to, but I was glad to see it because it's really hard to go to people and say, yeah, your spoof calls in the UK are out of control. What can we say?
Yeah. I'm often critical of the ICO, but to be fair to them, when it comes to Reg 6 PECA, which is unsolicited calls, nuisance calls, the ICO does actually issue a fair amount of enforcement. And it was at the end of June 26th, actually, there was they actually took 8 individuals to court for unlawfully obtaining personal data and unauthorized access data held on computer systems under the Computer Misuse Act. In fact, not a lot of people know that. In the GDPR, they have powers to issue monetary penalties and things like that. But in our Local Data Protection Act, there's actually criminal offences about unlawfully obtaining personal data. And so actually the ICO here does have the ability to take not just companies to court for GDPR penalties, but actually individuals to court for actually breaking the law, like the Computer Misuse Act and the Data Protection Act.
Which I'm glad to see, because I know it's been out of control in the UK, and I'm sure it's out of control in some other countries as well, but the UK has been really bad, specifically bad about it. It's made headlines with the amount of spoof calls, which you would think is absolutely crazy. But glad to see some action being taken on that.
It doesn't help that there are all these companies that just sell your data, the Lucid IOs and Apollo IOs and all of those, where for a few dollars you can buy data sets and just start calling people. Or sending them text messages and all of that.
Absolutely. And just so if there's members of the public here, just know if you get an unexpected call and someone's asking for information or money from you, you should tell them you'll call them back, and you should hang up and you should call the actual number you have with your insurance card or your credit card or whatever it is that they're trying to spoof you on, and call the number there, not the one that they call you from. Don't press redial. It doesn't work that way. But just so you know, even if you say they have my traffic accident number and they have the vehicle identification number of my car, but they also had my whatever number, my passport number, my whatever. With all the data that's out there loose on the dark web, people, you don't think they can't take a few pieces of disconnected information and connect them together and make you think that they're getting this from your insurance company or something? Absolutely, they can. The data's out there. Anyone that hasn't had their data disclosed on the dark web yet probably isn't even crawling yet. I'm just saying. The data's there. So they can make these connections that make it seem like it's legit when it's not.
And in the UK, you can actually forward on the spam text messages to 7726, which is actually, if you look at your alphanumeric keypad, is actually spam.
There you go.
7726 on your alphanumeric keypad is actually where you would find the letters S, P, A, and M. So 7726 or spam on your alphanumeric keypad, and you can actually forward the text messages to spam 7726, and that acts as a report here in the UK.
So would that also work for all the WhatsApp text messages? Hey, Mom, I've got a new phone number, and can you please wire £2,000 to my bank account?
Yeah, it's only got to work for SMS messages, that one, not direct messages inside an app. But they are technically subject to the same piece of legislation, which is the PECR, which can be made complaint to the ICO or even your network provider that is obliged to pass them on.
Yep. And the ICO has a dedicated page for spams and spoofs and scams and all of these fraudulent things that happen here, which a lot of regulators do. But I do the fact that the ICO is paying a lot of attention to this. It's been particularly bad there, I understand. So on this side of the pond, I don't have a whole lot of information to share other than one news article in particular caught my attention, that Mississippi has an age verification law for social media.
Adopted or in progress?
It actually was adopted. It was passed. We missed this one somehow, talking about Mississippi, and they got a court injunction to stop it from going into effect. However, now the Federal Court of Appeals out of Louisiana, and by the way, that is Louisiana, not Louisiana. They got a Court of Appeals out of Louisiana that lifted the injunction and did at this point state that the Mississippi Act could stay on the books, and the injunction is listed. So let me see if I can get you a little bit more details here about this. So the group which is fighting it is NetChoice. Now, NetChoice members are the social media platforms. Just think of it that way. So NetChoice is now going to the Supreme Court. This is the news. This is the first age verification law going to the U.S. Supreme Court. The group filed an emergency application on Monday. Let's see, the article came out today, so this was just 2 days ago, days after the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said the Mississippi law can take effect. And while NetChoice has sued other states over it, the Mississippi case is the first one to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, I don't see in here whether it says the U.S. Supreme Court accepted the case. That's probably down in here somewhere. I'll go look and see if the U.S. Supreme Court has deigned to take it up. If they do not take it up, which I imagine they would, the decision may already be out there. I would see that they would, because this issue has come up in multiple states, multiple courts. That's typically the one you're going to see the U.S. Supreme Court take up, as if there is a wide diversity of opinions out there, and this is really a topic under fire. However, they can also choose not to take it up because they get petitioned for thousands upon thousands, and they can only hear 100 or so. It's that. And so there would be reasons on both sides for them not to take it up. But if they don't take it up, that means the last decision stands, which means the law is allowed to be in place. And age verification laws can be very controversial, especially if minors can only be on their permission of their parents, and you have to age verify the parents or validate the identity of the parents. Then you're also putting some of these marginalized populations, LGBTQ youth, and all in a very tough position. If they can't come out to their parents that they're gay or trans or whatever, then they also can't get any support groups for social media. Social media tend to be the only outlets of only support that a lot of marginalized populations have access to. And so these age verification codes have some wonderful pros and some awful cons. Mississippi is the Deep South, people. So if you think about the politics and the culture and who would be against support groups for LGBTQ youth or any of that, it's going to be in the Deep South. And I'm from Mississippi. I can criticize it. We also criticized it when it was with other states as well, because you're going into a lot of very politically touchy situations, and having age verification really does take a lot of the support off of a lot of teenagers who may have no other way of reaching out. However, it was passed because of a young man, I believe it was a young man, took his own life because of sextortion. And so they passed the law because of that, which, as we've said before, a lot of times you get laws passed because something traumatic happens and it spurs people's emotions to do something. And so this was a really good reason to look at what can we do to fix sextortion. We can make sure that there's age verification laws, things like that in place. So a good reason, perhaps maybe not necessarily the best outcome, but for these reasons, you have limited weapons against them, right? And so you can't blame lawmakers for trying to put in a weapon of choice to fix one evil.
Of course not.
but unfortunately may be hurting another situation. So it's a very delicate balancing act. And I don't know that anyone has found the right solution to either side yet.
We'll see what the Supreme Court will do. The petition was only filed today, actually, to the Supreme Court of the United States. Apparently, it's Justice Alito who will need to decide because the court is in recess and won't reconvene until the fall for full decisions on writ of certiorari to take up the case. But it could be that there is an emergency stay or that the emergency stay is denied. We'll probably hear in the coming days. So it might be that by the time the podcast is out, Justice Alito will have decided on the emergency stay.
Yep. And we can update it if that's the case when it does. But it would be a really interesting one to take to the Supreme Court. But I will say that I have been on pins and needles waiting on decisions from the Supreme Court before, and they come out with something that is so very fact specific. It can apply to no other situation that could potentially or ever arise again.
To be honest, I'd rather wait until there is a more balanced court.
Yeah. No, I and again, we've actually seen age verification in practice over here in the UK. Grindr, Blue Sky, all of those people who are joining up in the UK now has to go through an age verification process.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Weird indeed. So yeah, it's starting to become more and more ubiquitous.
And with that, it's a good note to end on.
See you next week.
That was Serious Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Serious Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.